we're going to talk for a little while, make a little video here of the new fence on our new router table. It's pretty similar to our old fence, but it's got some changes, some differences, improvements. It's heftier for one thing, but in addition, the adjustments are better. So I'm going to talk about the back side of it here first, and I'll go around the front and we'll look at just a couple things on the front side of it. All right, on the back side, of course, we've got the two tighten down knobs. We've got this track and this track that it rides in. And the message here is when you get it in the place you want it, just torque it about that much. That's all you need. It has got a hold of it. It doesn't move even if it gets tapped on. So it doesn't take much torque to hold this in place, so don't overdo it. When you overdo it, the nut that rides in this slot and gets pulled up against the underslide of the overhanging slot parts, the nut, when you torque this down too much, will dent those undersides, and because it's aluminum. And when it dents the underside, the next guy that comes and wants to make an adjustment near where you were, and he tightens this down, when the nut gets up to the dent, it's going to slide into the dent when he pulls on it more with torque, and then it's going to move the fence on him. It's going to be hard to adjust this closely when it's working on an uneven, bumpy, dented surface underneath here, because the nut's going to want to walk into the dentations. So don't make those indentations. Just use a moderate amount of tension. It will hold the fence in place. You'll be fine. Now, the sub fence, which is the part that moves here on this fence, the two different sides, is locked in place with these three nuts or thumb screws or whatever you want to call them, knobs on the back here, 3 on each side. So the fence moves out 2 inches each one, and then that's all it moves. And when they're together in the middle, there's still a 1/2 inch gap in the front. That's the way it's designed. Now, when you move this out to where you want it, just gently tighten these. You really wouldn't even need to tighten all 3, but since there's 3, just gently tighten all 3 and it will not slide anymore. You don't have to over torque these either, so don't. Now, turns out that if you take both of these sub fences and slide them out to the sides, I'm going to go around to the front and I'm going to show you that you can change the insert and the router bit without moving the main body of the fence, even if you're up over top of the bit and the insert. So if you had a big bit in there sticking out, you might only have a little bit of it sticking out past the fence, and you want to change that bit and put another one in there for your next pass, but you don't want to move the fence, you can do that. Okay, I'll show you. So that's about it for the back. These guys I'm probably going to put in a storage drawer. These guys allow you to bump the sub fence out either a 1/16 or a 32nd of an inch. You put both of these and the same side in these slots behind the sub fence after you loosen it up enough to get them in there. And then the one sub fence is bumped out either a 32nd or a 1/16 from the other sub fence. When you're taking a 1/16 or a 32nd off of the full face of your work, then you can get it set up with these bump outs so that you can get pressure against the sub fence on the infeed side and the sub fence on the outfeed side without the work rocking. There you go. So that's it for the back side of the fence. Now I'm going to go around to the front. All right, so now we're back around to the front side of the fence. You insert your collet. Picture there's a bit in there. You can loosen the sub fence up 4 inches apart. So I can come way up here, and I can still get the tool in there to take out the insert, and I can still get the wrenches in there to change the bit without moving the basic fence. When I get my new bit in there, I can just bring these in to whatever distance I want with the new bit, and then lock them in place and go ahead with my work. So that's a nice feature. I don't think it'll get used a lot, but it's convenient. Now this track up here is for jigs, and there are hold down jigs. You can make or get jigs that hold pointers. So if you're making blind dados, you can set this pointer right here, and you know when you're running your board across, when the end of your board gets to that pointer, you should stop, because that's where you wanted to end your dado. Okay, so, and then you can set another one over here so you go this way. So then you can do your blind dados and use these movable things rather than marking pencil lines on the sub fence, which after a while it gets all messy. So we don't have those jigs. I might make one and we can use it from then on. But anyway, this is for jigs, okay? This is for the miter, and this is for jigs, okay? When you're using this or this, you're going to want the fence parallel to the miter slot or this slot, the same thing. And to do that, you're going to back and use these scales. Now, these scales I set up so that when you put the face of the fence on the 0 mark there and the face of this side on the 0 mark here, it's parallel to the miter slot. And the face of the fence goes right through the middle of the bit. So you can calculate, and you can use that to get the distance between your cut and the edge of the wood without doing a lot of measuring. So, for example, if you wanted to have a 3/8 inch wide dado, 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the board, you put your 3/8 inch wide cutter in here, and you would set these scales so that from the center of the cutter to the edge of the board is half the cutter plus the 3/8 leftover wood you want. So it would be 3/16 and 6/16, 9/16. So you would set these fence on 9/16 of an inch, right there, and right here, and now, and tighten it down, and then you would be very close. When you ran your piece of wood through there, you would get a 3/8 inch wide dado from the 3/8 inch cutter, and it would be 3/8 of an inch from the edge of the board. The outer edge of the dado would be, not the center, the outer edge would be, because that's what you set this up to be. You measured, or you calculated to do that. So let's leave these rulers here and here. Let's leave them where they are, zeroed on the center of the router bit. Now, things that are in our shop that are adjustable get adjusted. Sooner or later, somebody will adjust it. So if you want to check that it's still in calibration, you can loosen this, set the fence on any number, but be the same number on both ends. Like here's 10 millimeters. There's a millimeter and an inch scale on these scales. So you would set that like on 10 millimeters, and then measure from this edge to there, and from the same edge to there, and if they're the same measurement, it's still parallel to the slot. So this probably the scales didn't get moved. If they're different, somebody's moved one or the other or both of the scales, and all bets are off. The way to set them the way you want them is to put the fence where you want it, measure from here, this edge, to the fence here, and this edge to the fence here, get them the same or the dimension you want, 5 inches, 4 inches, whatever it is, and then move the scales till they are even with the fence face. Now, to move the scales underneath, there is, underneath here, there's a little knob. It screws a screw up that puts pressure against the scale and pushes it up against the underside of the slot that it's in, and it holds it in place. And there's one on each one. But like I said, they're both set now for 0 to be right through the middle of here, and that will also make the fence parallel at the same time. Fence, of course, will be parallel anytime you put the same number on both scales. So that's, I think, the most useful way to have the scales set, and I hope that they'll stay there all the time. Well, that's about it for this, except for this guy. It's a new feature. It is a guard, a router bit guard. So you're all set up and everything, and you want to protect yourself, extra protection against bumping the bit, you can use this guard. Now it's less likely you're going to bump the bit. It's simple as that. It has limitations because that's as high as it'll go, and if your piece won't fit under there, yeah, it can't be there. In which case you would just take it off like I did. You know, it just slides out the end. I used it here at home. I was just playing with this thing to see what could be done. And I put a piece of tape on here, and I used it for a stop point for blind dado. So I ran until my wood got back even with the edge of this tape, and that was helpful. But of course only on one end, so helpful but not universally applicable. I think that is probably all the basic stuff I need to tell you about this fence, and I hope you don't have any trouble using it. I hope it works out for you. I think it's a pretty nice setup.